One of many reasons for turning to violence is a lack of alternatives, and one organization that's giving more alternatives to young people in Boston and other parts of the world is Peace in Focus. Later this month, the organization will present work by its young photographers and their mentors at the Harriet Tubman House in the South End. We'd like to welcome from Peace in Focus the founder and executive director, Kyle Dietrich, and one of the photographers from Boston, Antonio Stroud. Thank you very much for being with us.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I want to start with Kyle about how this all gets started and what photography has to do with making peace.
Right. I think young people understand as they're going through adolescence that images have a strong impact on their lives. Right. They're consumers every day of thousands of marketing messages, video games, TV, everything have a lot of images of violence, and those have a pretty strong impact on identity. And so what we try to do in our program in a very simple way by teaching media literacy specifically around photography and visual culture is transform them from simply consumers of information to producers of information and architects of their own story. So they, through photography and through visual storytelling, they begin to grapple with some of the issues that their communities face and then shift the narrative in their community away from one that I would say is heavily embedded in sort of stereotypes and divisions, but try to put the power in their hands so they can create a positive message.
Antonio, you were already moving in this direction because you study media in high school at West Roxbury High, but what took you from there to getting involved in this program?
More so the compassion that the men and women involved with Peace in Focus have for the development of adolescents. That was amazing to me because just for the simple fact that a lot of people just don't take adolescence seriously. And you kind of get that in society where adolescents don't really have a lot of voice. So that drew me in.
Right. I want to see if you can tell me a little bit about some of the photos you've taken, and we have one that we can bring up here. This looked familiar to me from Jamaica Plain. What made you see a photo in that?
Well, I noticed as the woman was walking by in that direction, she didn't see me looking at her, and she didn't see the mural gazing down upon her. And it was a kind of a funny thing. I said, one of my quotes to this picture, pardon me, was, "Someone's always watching." So that was kind of my message.
But you were the one watching.
I was watching, and so was the mural. The mural was looking.
Well, what's this like? Now, this is not the neighborhood where you live, and you're around town. It's like you're in a foreign country almost in a way, and you're seeing things that you wouldn't pay attention to if you weren't actually on the ground, standing there.
And you know, that's another thing with Peace in Focus. It's helped me realize and just look at life from a photographer's point of view. So I'm looking at things and trying to see what each circumstance in my life is saying to me. Because when you look at a picture, that's what you're trying to see.
How does that feel? Explain it to somebody who doesn't do this as deliberately as you do.
It's interesting. Like it feels really good that I'm able to look at life from a different perspective, away from conforming to what others do.
Now here's another photo. It is almost a tourist site, but then again, a lot of tourists walk by it and they don't notice what you did.
Mm-hmm. Oh well, I noticed that's Jamal. He's actually engaged in our process as well. And I was looking at this photograph and I didn't really have a message to it. But as I began to look at it, I started thinking about, what we were talking earlier about adolescents not really having a voice. Well, sometimes adolescents feel trapped in this bubble. I know I do. As a young man growing up in the inner city of Boston, we're usually looked at as the underdogs. And, I often advocate this to my friends. We're powerful if we believe we are. So I think, we can step out of that bubble. It was just water. We can step over it. I think that was my message.
Now, this is actually from the same area around the Christian Science Center, and this is the photograph of a photographer.
Mm-hmm. I think it was just a fun theme, so to speak. I looked at the buildings. As you can see, that's the oldest church in Boston, the first Christian Science church, and that's a very old building. Then you have the Prudential building, and then there's another building on the right. I forget the name of that building, but I just looked at how the the land, how it was built, so to speak. I like that.
And just to add, I think we took our group on different, we call community photo mapping projects. And I was surprised at how many young people from the greater Boston area had not even been downtown or had not been across the river to Cambridge to see the architecture of MIT. And so part of what we're trying to do is engage in the process of using photography to look at both the beauty in their community, right, and all of the great things, the gardens, the landscape, the history, but also look at the social issues in their community and then try to balance the things that they love and also the things they want to change.
Tell me about this. This is from the project. This is not by Antonio, but this is a photo from Liberia, right?
Right. This is a photo. So I was in Liberia. Peace in Focus has two programs in Africa, one in Burundi in East Africa and one in Liberia in West Africa. Both come from 12 and 14-year civil wars. This is one of our 15-year-old participants named Princess, and this is at a seaside slum, as they would call it. And several of our participants came from this community, and it floods all the time. And she's taking, again, we have to remember that photography is capable of both documenting and shaping reality. And what she's doing is simply stopping to look at something that maybe she sees every day, but looking at it with a different lens and choosing, you know, lots of little decisions go into each photograph. How do we frame it? What are we including and excluding? And look at all of the things behind her, the trash, the slum, and yet she's looking out at this vast expanse of ocean. And just the contrast of the color of her and the wind in the trees and the ocean, it gives a nice balance.
Antonio, I look at that and think it's picturesque, at the same time, I'm glad I don't live in that.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, it humbles me. Just to look at some of these people that are disempowered by reality, and they're my age. So I guess that makes me want to do more, and it makes me want to take the initiative instead of being engaged in a season of stagnant passivity. So it definitely humbles me.
Right.
For the most part.
I should mention, Kyle, the exhibit. Tell me a little bit when and where.
Sure. The exhibit is on Thursday, this Thursday, February 11th, from 6 to 9 at the Harriet Tubman House, which is part of United South End Settlements. And it's going to be a series of photos from our young people in Boston, Burundi, and Liberia, kind of a collection of their work. It'll be a celebration of youth. We'll have spoken word, breakdance, music, some special guests and refreshments, and it'll be up through the end of April, so it's a big celebration of sort of their accomplishments as visual storytellers.
I know you have more information also on your website.
Sure, yeah, and people can visit our website. It's peaceinfocus.org, right, and get in touch with us if you're interested in the program or want to support us.
Right. Well, thank you both very much for being with us. Kyle Dietrich.
Thanks for having me.
And Antonio Stroud
from
Peace in Focus. Up ahead, the report from the Fenway after this message.